Hey guys, welcome to Tilt Shift. I'm Brian.
And I'm Tim.
And today we're looking at a movie called Avatar. And so this
They might have heard of this.
Might have heard of it. It was a decent, kind of big deal back in the day. There's also a
Made
second
a little
one.
bit of money, right?
A little bit of money, but it is PG-13. It's got intense, epic battle sequences and warfare, a lot of that, and a lot of sensuality. There's definitely that as well, language, some smoking. And also understand that there's aliens depicted as kind of like a native tribal people. So
they're humanoid.
They're humanoids, but they're not clothed all that well all the time, and so you have that issue as well.
Where are your clothes? Put some clothes on.
It's not explicitly mentioned there.
And so when the clips that we're going to be watching, we tried our best to avoid showing
Worked really hard.
from certain angles and everything.
Which limited a lot of the clips and how much we could show. Yeah,
but just so you're aware, you're still going to see some of the natives, and
Right.
it's some of the aliens. I should
understand
say.
it's in the movie
Yes.
if you choose to try to watch the movie. Made back in 2009 for the first Avatar. The second one just came out not that long ago, right? Way of Water. And we'll mention that a little bit as we go through this. But it was all-time domestic box office record holder until The Force Awakens.
Right.
Which kind
so
of
domestically.
But
worldwide.
Worldwide, nearly $3 billion.
Yeah, it's number one worldwide, almost $3 billion. And the second one, almost $2 billion at the time we're recording right now. I'm sure by the time people see this, well over $2 billion. And that's a lot of money for two movies.
That's a lot of success, right, for that movie and that franchise. And so...
and they're planning on making 5 total.
5 total,
so
right. And I heard they recorded some of 3 while doing part of 2,
did.
so number 3 might come out fairly quickly. We'll see about that. But the plot line's similar to things like Dances with Wolves and Ferngully and stuff like that.
It's this person who is on one side, who we ultimately learn they're the bad people.
Right.
And they see how this other group lives, and they're much purer. They're much better.
Closer to nature.
Yeah, and they have to turn against their own kind, sort of thing. So it's very similar. There's a lot of movies that have done that.
Yeah.
This one just does it in a
space setting, right? And starting 2150s, roughly.
It's like those other movies on steroids times 100 because the CGI is just extraordinary. It's
especially if you saw it was available on 3D when it first came out in theaters, and it was kind of groundbreaking. That the CGI was groundbreaking, and the new one is too. They're so well done. But it has 3D, but it wasn't like the old 3D that was so clunky. You know, this was subtle, but it was there, and it really made the movie pop in a unique way.
There were scenes. I remember watching it in 2D first, and I heard people telling you got to go see it in 3D. And okay, I'm going to go see it in 3D. And there's scenes where he's walking through this forest or jungle, and the stuff is like right.
You kind of
here.
feel like you're there.
It just seems like you're right in there. It was really amazing. Most of the time, 3D's pushed way up toward the screen, or almost looks like it goes back into the screen. This was all over the place. It was very, very well done from a technical. Technological perspective,
especially if you like visuals, which I do. I mean, it was really amazing.
Extraordinary.
It really was.
What they did in this.
No, Harry, no! Don't look at the light! I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
So story-wise, this is about a movie about a guy named Jake who's got a twin brother who was in the military, and Jake died. Or actually, no, he was like a scientist type of character.
His twin brother was a scientist.
Jake is the military guy.
He was in the military,
And his twin brother is killed by a guy with a gun. We don't see it. That's all off camera. The movie opens with Jake describing that. And so he's a handicapped veteran. He's lost the use of his legs.
Right.
And in the year 2154, he travels to an extrasolar moon, Pandora.
Right.
And so he's going to take his brother's spot, who had passed away because they're twins.
Right.
And so what the idea is, this avatar program they've developed where they can lie in this bed and transport their consciousness into this avatar body to look like one of the Na'vi, one of the alien.
An avatar body is basically a combination of genetic information from the native aliens at Pandora and genetic information from that person as well, put together. And they grow this clone, if you will, in a sense, this body in a test tube. And then in the movie, again, it's a movie, it's sci-fi, but they are able to then sit in a pod and they can transfer their consciousness from their body to the avatar body. And now they're living in the avatar body until they go to sleep or choose or get disconnected and they're pulled out of it.
Yeah, so what we're going to see in our first clip is the first time that Jake links up, if we can use that terminology, with the avatar body.
Transfers his consciousness.
So we're going to see what leads up to that as they describe it.
Tell me you're joking.
This is cool. Let's go. Don't. Got this.
So you just figured you'd come out here to the most hostile environment known to man with no training of any kind and See how it went? What was going through your head?
Maybe I was sick of doctors telling me what I couldn't do.
Biometrics are good.
Link 3 is ready.
Keep your arms in, hands in, head down. Down. Just relax and let your mind go blank. It shouldn't be hard for you.
Yeah, so the doctor there's not a big fan of him because he is a military guy, not a science guy. His brother, his twin brother, was a science guy.
And we'll see that she's had some run-ins with the military guys that she knows.
Not a
They're
big
more like
fan
mercenaries.
of that,
But
yeah. And by the way that we'll get to this later on, but the military is not portrayed so well in the movie, so you can't understand her animosity towards people who are there. But we're going to see he does transfer his consciousness, and because his twin brother has the same or similar genes as him.
Yeah.
So you could kind of step in because you had to have the same genes as your avatar, basically, genetically speaking.
yeah, it's almost like looking for a donor for whether a kidney or maybe bone marrow donor. You
Okay.
need somebody who's very similar, at least in that one respect.
Yeah.
This one, you needed somebody who was like a perfect match.
No one's ever attempted a double bypass brain transplant before.
And so he could do it. And he thinks like his whole goal is that he's supposed to go there and to help the scientists to get to know the Na'vi, to protect the scientists and engage the Na'vi, get to
In a
know them,
dangerous
learn their
world.
ways in
Yep.
a dangerous world, right? And his brother was a scientist, was supposed to help and actually engage in the people. But of course, he can't do that, but he can help protect this other scientist.
Yeah, and the one thing I liked about that early on in that clip, he talks about how when she says, you know, what were you thinking? He's like, maybe I'm sick of doctors telling me what I can't do.
Yeah.
And I think that mentality can really help people who have been in a difficult situation, people who are dealing
Sure.
with loss of limbs or something like that. That just saying that never quit mentality. I'm
Right.
going to push
The
myself.
Rocky mentality. I'm going to keep getting up.
And, and so he does have that going for him, and in a sense, you kind of root for him because of that.
Now, of course, she told him that you just let your mind go blank. And then
Yeah.
she has a little snide remark. That should be easy for you. But, you know, just let your mind go blank. And it kind of reminds us of what a philosophy you might see in Eastern meditation, something they advocate for. What's the connection on that?
Yeah, so the Bible talks about meditation, and then you also see meditation being talked about in, whether it's transcendental meditation
Right.
or maybe some of the way that yoga is used originally, especially
Right.
some of that background where they talk about letting your mind go blank, and then you're kind of looking inside yourself for the answers, so you're blocking out all the noise and kind
Right.
of. But when the Bible's talking about meditation, it's not that.
Not at all.
You know, you're meditating on what is pure and noble and just and true and praiseworthy. You're also meditating on God's word. What that means is that throughout the day, you're thinking about what you've read, and you're focused, and you're working through that and trying to understand it better and put it into practice. And so that's a very different idea of meditation.
Those things could not be more different, right? So within that Eastern idea of meditation, you are, like you said, you're trying to let your mind go blank. Why? So you can see clearly inside you to find the answers in yourself. And to look at your own heart and then follow your own heart.
That
Kind of that
sounds like
whole
Disney.
Disney theme, right? Yeah, exactly. Whereas the Bible says, no. When you meditate on God's word, that yes, you empty yourself of the world's thinking, but you fill yourself with God's thinking and God's thoughts that you may look to Him.
That sounds like
to find your
Romans
purpose.
12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect.
Way to be biblical and quote a Bible verse.
That's the way to do it. But even like
Yeah,
1 Peter
absolutely.
1:13, prepare your minds
Now
for...
you're just showing off. All
Prepare
right.
your minds for action.
Or wait, Colossians 3:2, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things.
And Jesus
right?
tells us to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind,
That's right.
and strength. So you don't, check your brain at the door when you go to church.
Right.
No, we're to love God with our minds. He's given them to us, and we need to think through and utilize them as we try to live godly lives and tell others about Him.
Absolutely. And just a quick little word of warning. You may be hearing all this and saying, okay, that's well and good. That's the difference between Christianity and other Eastern religions or other religions. How does it apply to me? Well, beware, these ideas are in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there's a big push in many public schools or even organizations to practice what's called mindfulness, which is essentially Eastern meditation to a large degree. Supposed to like stop, control your breathing, let your mind go blank. It's that kind of that whole idea in subtle ways. And so just beware, those ideas are in the marketplace and in school systems.
And of
stuff
course,
like
it's
that.
marketed in a good way. Oh, we're just helping them to calm down.
Right.
And
And
that
good
is
breathing
to be
can be helpful,
Yeah.
but where are you looking for answers ultimately?
Right.
All right.
Yeah, so in his first mission, he thinks he's just there to kind of be a guard. He gets separated from the group because this huge panther-like creature.
Beastly-looking creature.
Yeah,
Pretty
a
scary.
lot of them have like 6 legs and everything. So
Yeah.
they kind of look like something on Earth, but then they're amped up, and so
Yeah.
he's running from it. It's exciting. There's a lot of action in this movie.
There is.
And then later that night, he gets surrounded by these killer dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And he's trying to ward them off.
Alien dingoes? Is that
Something
fair?
like that.
I don't know.
And so, anyways, this native female, Neytiri, comes in and she saves him. And then when he tries to thank her, she scolds him. And here we're going to see Neytiri in Jake's avatar body.
Well, this is your fault. They did not need to die.
My fault. They attacked me. How am I the bad guy?
Your fault!
Hey, woo.
Your fault.
It's your fault that
Now,
these
she did
animals
want to say, she's like, well, you're walking around like a child. You have no idea what you're doing. And because of your ignorance and your lack of ability, that's why they attacked you. But she's still blaming him.
And she doesn't know his backstory.
Not at all.
She didn't know that he's really a
That's
guy
true.
who just came out here, didn't know that it was all like that. He hasn't walked for 5 years at least. We don't know how much longer it was before that he became handicapped.
Yeah.
And but it's still that mentality that we see in movies that have a strong environmentalist focus, which this does.
This really
There's
does.
a lot of, it's not Earth worship because they're not on Earth, but it's kind of like that, but on a different planet. And how is it his fault that he gets attacked by these other animals? How is it? We see the same message in other films.
Think about Godzilla.
Yeah,
right?
Godzilla. We saw that thing.
Humans are the cause.
It's what it is. It's called the noble savage myth.
Right.
And it's something that we see in American history. We see a lot of people try to pretend as if Native Americans, before European settlers ever came over, were in perfect peace and harmony with everyone
nature
around
and
them,
man,
and
right?
with nature and with animals. And it was just no. Just like us.
Historically, it's not true, and biblically, it's not
Right.
true.
We're sinful. And
right.
there were wars between different tribes, and there, people conquering different lands or
Let's be clear,
forcing
that
their-
doesn't justify atrocities. We're not
No.
saying that, but we're saying the idea of the noble savage, that is a myth.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, the colonists and others, and even America, once it became a nation, has done some horrific things to
Right.
Native Americans. We're not trying to downplay that.
Not at all.
But let's look at these things from an honest perspective rather than always completely minimizing one thing and making the other seem like it's the worst possible. How about we just acknowledge the truth that people are bad all
Yeah,
around,
broken.
and people have mistreated people throughout history. It's not just one certain type of people who have always been the ones who are at fault.
And it's interesting. We kind of see it here, but more later on too. And that the idea is that man needs to change. Right? Nature's okay, but man's the problem. We saw that with Godzilla and so forth. And it really downplays the value of human life and really ups the value of nature and animals and so forth.
And in this movie, the Na'vi, the native people there, they kind of do act and in some ways look like the stereotypical Native Americans that we
It's
see
a
in
tribal
film.
culture for sure, right?
And so they have this deep connection with nature. In fact, they're both physically and spiritually, and it's so deep they actually have like this braid or something that they're able to connect physically
with animals, right? To bond with them and kind of see almost the world through their eyes and kind of get connected. And be aware that the movie, there are a lot of problems with the movie. So for all the aesthetics of it and all the different things that we can't like about the action and some different things, and the characters are well written, but there are a lot of problems. And
A lot of bad messaging.
A lot of bad messaging, and it's very pantheistic, where everything is God is in everything, and or naturalistic. And so, I mean, just be aware of that.
And in this next scene, what we're going to see is that Neytiri doesn't want Jake around. She wants to ditch him, and he's been trying to thank her, and then something happens. She sees this sign that tells her,
from their deity of sorts.
from Awa is their
Awa,
deity.
yeah.
So let's take a look at that.
Atokirina.
What are they?
Seeds of the sacred tree. Very pure spirits.
Pretty cool light show.
Yeah. lot of fiber optics were on the set.
What was that all about?
Come. Come.
Where are we going?
He is like a kid, but so I would be too. I mean,
One thing to understand, this is the first time he's got to walk for at least 5 years.
first time he's seen that world as well.
Yeah.
This is all brand new to him, right?
And it is, you can see visually, it's stunning.
Yeah.
And the
music's really good too, and so you really kind of get wrapped up in what you're watching there. As you are hit with the music and the beauty of the visuals and the power of the characters and how they're written.
Yeah, so you can see how Awa is sort of like what people call Gaia here,
Yeah,
the
like Mother
Earth goddess,
Earth.
kind of Mother Earth sort of thing. Yeah. And she, in this film, if I can say she, it is more like all about maintaining balance. There's even a scene later on where she doesn't choose sides. It's this, and I
Which
guess
reminds me
it's
of Star Wars, right? I mean,
a little bit.
Star Wars, you got the Force. There's a Force out there that wants to maintain balance in the universe, and so that's kind of what A was trying to do, more or less, in the movie.
That's,
right?
that's what we're
the idea.
told. Yeah,
That's what we're
she
told.
does take sides, as we'll see. But notice what her response was when he said, "What is it? Very pure spirits." Now that's not really described. It shouldn't go more than that. Are they the departed spirits of the Navi? Is it just
maybe? Is it just
we're not
a branch
really sure.
of Awa, part of her spirit? They don't tell you.
But she takes it as a sign that she's supposed to bring Jake back to the village, and so that's what she does. Now we're going to go back to the if I can say, the human side of things.
Yeah.
We're going to see Dr. Augustine. That was the Sigourney Weaver character that we saw earlier. She's been there for years. She's been interacting with the
Studying
with the
everything.
natives and teaching them English. So some of them understand Jake when he's there.
Yeah.
And eventually he's learning their language too. But she's going to talk about that interconnectedness of that world. Remember we talked about how the braid can connect to certain things? Well, it's not just their braids connecting it. The whole world, the whole
Is connected
planet
together.
is connected, we're going to see.
About some kind of pagan voodoo here. I'm talking about something real, something measurable in the biology of the forest.
Which is what exactly?
What we think we know is that there's some kind of electrochemical communication between the roots of the trees, like the synapses between neurons. And each tree has 10 to the 4th connections to the trees around it. And there are 10 to the 12th trees on Pandora.
Which is a lot, I'm guessing.
It's more connections than the human brain. Get it? It's a network. It's a global network, and the Navi can access it. They can upload and download
It's the
data,
internet.
memories, at sites like the one you just destroyed. Yes.
So he's not impressed.
No, he does mock her after
So
she says all that.
he kind of
Yeah.
represents capitalism in this film.
Yeah.
And they, as we'll see, they kind of trash that. They take some shots at it. But
They do.
So everything is interconnected on Pandora, and since that includes Awa, it is, like you were talking about earlier, kind of like pantheism. It's not exactly that, but it's very similar.
Yeah, it's close.
So we see Dr. Augustine. Originally, she was more like the traditional scientist. It's just all about the hard data that she can see.
Right.
And yet she does have a respect and a reverence for the people. And then by the end, there's a scene
She's
where
really becoming a believer in
yes,
Awa,
and
right?
she actually
This
says,
idea
"I'm
of-
with her, Jake. I see her."
Well, she died.
Like
right?
Awa's
She has
real.
this,
Yeah.
Encounter with Awa, according to the movie. Yeah.
So it does have, the film has a lot of spiritualism.
Yeah.
But not a biblical spiritual viewpoint.
Yeah, which kind of reminds me, it's so funny, people will tend to say today, if you ask them, are you religious? Many will say no, but at least in our culture. Are you spiritual? They'll say yes.
Yeah.
Then I can dig it. Spiritual. Yeah.
Because we have that understanding there's something beyond us, but people don't want to bow to the God of the Bible. So, well, just make it spiritual so it's kind of just kind of random. I can pick what I want to do. Yeah.
And what we're going to see through this film, what's happening is that I mentioned that they take shots at capitalism. We're going to see some of that in this next clip. And so let's take a look at it.
Well, who gets them to move?
Yes.
What if they won't go?
Oh, I'm betting that they will.
Okay. Look. Killing the indigenous looks bad. But there's one thing that shareholders hate more than bad press, and that's a bad quarterly statement. I didn't make up the rules. So just find me a carrot that'll get them to move. Otherwise, it's gonna have to be all stick, okay?
You got 3 months. That's when the dozers get there.
But we're wasting time.
I like this guy.
Guys,
So basically, the context is that the Navi where they stay is this really big tree, like it's a huge
It makes the
tree,
redwoods
right?
look like a little twig.
Yeah, and that's their hub. That's the center of their culture and the people where they live and so forth, and their history even is kind of there. But this big tree is also on top of one of the biggest reservoirs of unobtainium.
Unobtainium.
Yeah,
This
which-
is priceless mineral.
unobtainium,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so you can't obtain it. But anyway, so there it is. And so they want to find a way to get the Navi to move out of the tree so then they can destroy the tree and dig down and get all that stuff and source it out. And you notice the guy there, the guy representing capitalism, right, who's telling Jake, hey, listen, we just want them to move. And of course, killing the indigenous people, that looks bad.
Looks bad.
But what's worse...
He doesn't say it is bad.
Yeah,
It just looks bad, yeah.
But what the investors hate more is a bad quarterly statement.
Right.
So those who are okay with gaining money, they must be evil because they just want money even at the cost of the lives of others.
And let's be honest, there are some people like that.
Oh,
You're
sure.
going to have wicked
We're
people
not
in any
denying that.
system.
Absolutely.
And every man-made system is going to fail if people are not living according to godly standards.
Right.
It's just that capitalism has benefited more people than any other system.
It has a
because
few
it
checks
spreads
and
it out.
balances in it
Yes.
in the way it operates, whereas other systems, in many cases, they don't have those checks and balances.
Even this director, his films have made $3 billion and $2 billion through capitalism.
Wait, are you
largely.
telling me they're criticizing capitalism while they make tons of money through capitalism?
Kind of like a lot of people do today while they're on their iPhones, you know, that was made through capitalism, all those different things,
Right.
complaining and whining
Using
about
all the
capitalism.
technology to make the movies that came from people, the capitalistic, yeah.
A bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
Now, if it was offered as a correction, that, hey, you know what, you got to get rid of this greed, like Enron, what they did
Sure.
back in the
Right.
90s, early 2000s. There's problems, but we digress a little bit.
Mwah, as if, no way.
So
we never do that.
Never.